What's up, everybody? Just wanted to go through a new hip series that I'm doing. Now, this is working on basically hip mobility as well as hip strengthening. I think that's one of the things that is holding me back from getting some good hip and torso separation, as well as some increased explosive power coming from the hips. Now, this first exercise is basically 90-90s with a lift off. These are really good working the glutes. Not too hard, though. The one thing I have kind of been lacking on this summer is working on my mobility, which is really needed for me. So I'm struggling a little bit with the 90-90s, but after like a week or two, these will feel kind of normal again. Now, this exercise is a 90-90 lift off. So basically your standard 90-90 hip switches, except this time you're going to come up and bring your hips up towards the sky. Now, this exercise is great for hip rotation strength as well as overall stability. So I think this is one that will help pitchers in general, just from being able to rotate more explosively as well as have more control of the pelvis as you're kind of moving throughout your delivery and all your training. And as you can see here with all the exercises that I do, I'm doing 2 sets of each. Now, this next exercise is working your hip flexors. And the one thing I found doing this is that it's actually very hard. And I feel like this is the very first exercise where I kind of feel the weakness of my hips. And you can kind of see like my knees are being bent as I'm doing this. So my hips aren't really as strong as I'd like them to be. I feel like if I had stronger hips, my legs would be able to stay bent. I feel like I need to bend my legs just to kind of complete a lot of the reps. So this is one of the exercises that I'm kind of excited about to see like how I continue on and how my hip flexors kind of improve. But the main thing I'm going to work on is trying to keep straight legs and then just build it up so this isn't as painful as it should be. And then as you can see here for my second set, I switched to a slightly heavier band because the yellow one is a very light band, the blue one's a little heavier. So I just switched to work the hip flexors a little bit more, work the exercise a little bit more, and then hopefully be able to progress all of these exercises as I continue doing them. Now, this exercise here is also still working my hip flexors, but this time we're working a bit more stability, a bit more control along these end ranges. And the one thing that I did notice was, especially during this exercise where the reps are a bit longer and I'm not really resting my foot on the ground at all, is my hips would cramp up a little bit. And that kind of made it harder to do some of these reps. But I think that's just, again, another sign of weakness in the hips. And I think if a lot of people did these, even a lot of, high-level athletes, they would find that their hips are a lot weaker than they think they are. And I think that goes for most parts of the body. For example, when people go to like PT and things like that, they realize, oh, I'm not really as strong as I thought I am, especially with a lot of these smaller muscles. But overall, like, I think these are going to be really helpful in being able to have control and stability over my hip. And I think that will allow me to just move better and be able to rotate and get my hips open much better. Now, this exercise I absolutely failed on, which I'm not surprised at all, but this is one that works your adductors, and you kind of want to keep your feet flat on the ground, which you can see is very hard for me. Very poor mobility is causing me to kind of go up on my toes, kind of bring my heels up. But this is supposed to work your adductors, and what you try to do is just slide your foot across the floor and kind of just walk side to side like that, almost like a duck walk, but you're really just walking laterally. So this is one of the big ones that I think I'll be able to see a lot of improvement in, and I think getting good at that will just be a big help. Now, with this exercise, very common, but here we are working on our external rotation. So you can see my right leg is externally rotated. Now, working on these externally and then also doing some internal work is what's going to allow the hips to be able to move freely and be able to open up and really move along the delivery. And then you can see here that I'm also working the other leg, so both sides. I know I'm on a bike seat, but you can work with a bench, with a chair, anything. So this exercise, we are now working internal rotation, and this is one of the ones where I kind of felt like a lot more discomfort in my hips. So I noticed it kind of in the top and around the sides of my hips, a lot of that discomfort there, which I think is a good sign because that means I'm working a lot of muscles and working in ways that I haven't done before and muscles I haven't really used before. So I think this will be good. Working that internal and external rotation of my hips and my legs, I think is really going to allow me to see a large increase in mobility and stability within my hips and just allow myself to rotate a lot better as I'm moving down a mountain and get to that point where I'm rotating like an elite pitcher. And then here for another exercise, we're working internal rotation as well. Now this one is a bit more of kind of just finding that range of motion and just working along that range of motion. So this one was very hard. one that I've always known I've been bad at, but it was good to kind of see like a starting point of where I am. And it was good to also see too, of like after doing these exercises and kind of this being the very last one, that I felt like I could rotate my leg a lot better. Not like a great distance, but I felt like I had a bit more control and maybe slightly more range. So that was always a positive. And again, with everything, I'm working both sides and doing 2 sets of each. So this now is like the second phase of like my hip exercises that I'm doing. This is working more strength. So here what I'm doing is I'm just bringing my knee up. I have a band. Now the red band is going to be on the heavier side, so generally a stronger band, but I'm just holding this position for 15 seconds. And I would like to be like a little straighter as I'm looking at my posture now, but just holding that for 15 seconds both sides. And again, this phase is more of like a build-up phase. So eventually I want to start using these exercises with like cables or chains, and just work on progressing these exercises. So this is more of the strengthening exercises, where the previous exercises were more built on kind of the mobility and moving the hips around and kind of getting them going normally. Now what I'm doing right after is I'm just kind of bringing my knee up as fast as possible. As soon as my like toes touch the ground, I'm trying to like fire my knee as fast as possible. And this is somewhat of a plyometric, but also get my body used to like moving that knee up and moving those hips as fast as possible. I want to learn and teach my body to fire those hips as fast as possible, move the segments of my body as fast as possible. So I'm going to do these after every single one of the banded holds. And then similar setup here, I got the red band, so a heavier band, and I'm kind of just like bringing my knee in, so still working on the hips and everything. And again, I'm going to do both sides, 2 sets. And I'm going to finish my hip exercises with that. So thank you all for watching, and I will keep you all updated on how these go and kind of how these play into kind of how I'm moving on the mound and kind of my delivery and what the mobility and strength looks like. See if I'm moving a little bit better, throwing a little bit harder. So I will keep you all updated, and thank you for watching.